Hi everyone. I'm going to take a little wander through our garden today. I know many people in lockdown or change of financial situation have been talking about developing their own gardens. I'm fortunate my grandparents both lived through World War II and the Great Depression. They were born during the Depression, and so they were very keen gardeners. And it's something I used to love to do with my grandma was help her in gardening. So during my adult life, all the places I've lived, I've always established a garden, as most of my friends do down here. We often joke in Coonawarra that we're the original hipsters because it's just our daily life that we do these things and get together and cook for each other. We'll often have dinner parties. Well, normally we would have dinner parties where everyone would bring a plate of something they've grown in the garden, and we'll kind of base a menu around what we've got at the moment. So that's a pretty fortunate way to live, along with the beautiful wines that we have. But I'm going to take you through our garden. So where we are on the northern end of Coonawarra, I don't have a vineyard around the shearing shed. We're on darker soils, and they hold their water very well during the wet period, and often we get little kind of shallow areas of water laying around, but not the Terra Rossa. So I don't have a vineyard here. My fruit comes from a grower about 3 k's from here, but what it is good for is a few sheep in the paddock and veggies. And the great thing about an old shearing shed is the old sheep poo that we had access to. So this shearing shed was built in 1868, and the sheep poo underneath would have been cleared out pretty regularly, but there would be sheep poo going back 150 years. So that's a pretty special element to build a garden on. So those dark soils and then sheep poo, and then I've just kept adding lots of mulch and things as well. So I started the garden, but these days I have some help. So Taryn Ward, if you're out there, she's a wonderful gardener to many beautiful gardens around the Coonawarra Limestone Coast region, and I greatly appreciate her input and knowledge. And there's a lot of seed sharing and things like that, and the only other people other than a couple of special friends that I've ever given that heritage or heirloom sheep poo to is the Penola Herb Garden. So the National Trust has a herb garden in Penola that lots of the chefs access, and that was primarily started by Kate Spencer, so a woman who was the first restaurateur in this region and pretty fierce CWA judge when it comes to our Sips and the Sticks thing each year. So what we're looking at here, this plant, I thought I'd start at, it's called Mullein, and a cellar door customer told me recently that this leaf is actually nature's toilet paper. So I thought, get with the times. We're safe here because we're only 40 minutes from Kimberley Clark, Australia's biggest toilet paper factory, but we've also got some mullein. But the flower, which you can see there's all these seeds here, but this little flower here, apparently if you steep that in water to make a tea, it can help reduce symptoms of fever and other things. So this is a very COVID-friendly plant that we've got here, mullein. Behind here, this garden bed has really, the back part of it's probably 3 years old, but all of this front part's really only probably 12 months old. And so I don't put much water onto this, so I've tried to make it fairly hardy. And so we've got succulents along the side, a bit of rosemary, lavender, and it's near our bathroom facilities, so I want it to smell nice. So we've gone with scented geraniums and things that will smell good as well. But then in amongst it, Taryn's been throwing out a lot of the seeds, and I'm really grateful for that because we've got not only some beautiful cornflowers and things coming out, but look at that kale, silver beet. There's, all types of different greens. And over in the distance, if you follow me, we've got this beauty. And so this is Warrigal Greens, so native to Australia. You can see it really, this doesn't get water at all. Watch this. So this is really nutritious and also very drought tolerant. So this, and there's another plant I'll show you later, I'd really like to get more of these in the garden because I think, you know, learning from native Australian or Indigenous plants and also Indigenous foods, I think is a really smart way to go in Australia. Behind that you'll see we've got pumpkin for days, so looking forward. None of that's really ready to harvest yet, but we will have lots of pumpkin soup. And so our garden that we've got here is definitely more than I personally can eat. So when people come and camp here, people that are comfortable with choosing when things are ready to pick, cook up a storm in the camp kitchen or, you know, around the campfire and camp ovens. Or some people we might pre-prepare something for. Or chefs that come here to do our table for 12 or events love the garden. So that's why we have it. And also, you know, I had to use that beautiful sheep poo somehow. So we do get a few saplings of eucalypts coming up, which we take out and try and transplant back into the paddock as part of our greening program. You know, these magnificent red gums need a few young saplings around them. Here we've got the last of our beans, and you'll notice in amongst everywhere we've got this stinging nettle. So stinging nettle, because I harvest it all the time, I can touch it and it doesn't sting my hands. If I was to, you know, kind of roll it against somewhere that does not normally get access to it, it does prickle. And it probably took me a long time of harvesting it to make my hands desensitised to it. But you can eventually do that. And the qualities of stinging nettle, and if you ever have sheep poo, you will have stinging nettle. They just go together. It's incredible for people that have arthritis. It is full of iron, and but be careful if you're diabetic. I've got a dear friend who is diabetic that I feel like I've almost tried to kill a couple of times because it can bring on a hyper. And she would love to know how she can use that for good. So those of you that may be diabetic or know someone that is, or in the medical, might be able to fill us in on a bit more knowledge about that. But if you have arthritis, just making a tea with stinging nettle or a soup, or I love pasta, is a great thing. So it's a really healthy thing to have. And when I was first setting up the garden, I'd often pull it out and put it around plants to deter rabbits as well. And then behind here, you know, we've got some brassicas, some very optimistic sunflowers popping up, and some Chinese greens. Oh my goodness, we've got an Easter egg with some, see those bugs on that Easter egg? They are the bane of my life, those soldier beetles. You don't want those. They're very annoying. They can have that Easter egg. We've got some coriander coming back up, and then heaps of carrots, poppies, and some more greens. Some lovely curly kale and things through there, and Tuscan kale. And these carrots, I always thought that you shouldn't let things self-seed too much. But this garden bed we've eaten off all of summer, and we're still eating out of it, and a lot of this is self-sown. And here's something the Easter bunny, I think, got into this morning. Here's some Vietnamese mint. This is a little wet spot in the garden. It gets some runoff, so we've been trying different things to deal with that, but it's a really good spot for Vietnamese mint, which is lovely and hot. And some celery, and then we'll just give you a quick look at the camp kitchen. So if you come and stay at Bellwether, whether you're glamping or camping, this is the place that we encourage people to come together. And we really look forward to days when we can all be doing that again. So you have very private campsites. We've spaced out the campsites, but we encourage people to come together to eat. And I've listened and overheard people sharing stories of their travels and meeting each other. One day there was some people that met who were from Melbourne and Adelaide, and they ended up watering each other's plants in each city, respectively. So I think there's a lot of benefits from being able to meet people. Clearly not at the moment. We're trying to save ourselves from virus, so we're staying away. But when we do return to whatever the new normality is, coming together I think is really good for the headspace. And here's the most beautiful fireplace. Probably the world's most expensive marshmallow cooker. That would be the major thing that gets cooked here. But from the day it was built, and so this was built by M. Mulligan from St. Mary's. And if you've never been to St. Mary's, when you visit Coonola, you must put it on your list. It's the most beautiful place and incredible garden that they have. Puts ours to shame. And gorgeous stonework. So this is, a pimple compared to the really stunning artwork out there. And it is an art form, their dry stonework. But they built this for us, and it uses some of the old shearing gear that used to hold the sharpening stone that hand shearers would use back in the day. And then this is made out of old barrel hoops. So if nothing else, it's a fireplace that people can sit around if it's... if you happen to be camping here on a night when it's raining and you still want to sit around a fire and cook some marshmallows or cook a camp oven roast. So I've seen some beautiful things cooked here, and Ben Williamson, if you're watching, a chef from Brisbane, cooked sips and sticks here for us a couple of years ago on a very wet weekend. So we always try and keep a bit of dry wood under here now, because we remember how tough that was for Ben. So here we've got a couple of lime trees, and we've got kaffir lime and finger lime. This is normal lime, it's for gin and tonics. A new rosemary hedge. Just wander through the bathroom, you see to the side here some of the trees that have been dug up that are ready to go out into the public, into the campground to help new plantation. So then we're at the front of our bathrooms, and we've got various herbs. So this is our bay hedge, which probably needs a trim. Over there we've got thyme, and then there's some tomatoes. Lots of that has self-sown, some more pale, and then beautiful Mabel sitting here with the French tarragon. Mabel is a guardian dog, so she comes up to you when she chooses to. So this is some French tarragon that Taryn dropped in here the other day. I have grown French tarragon in this garden bed several times, and it's, to all those gardeners out there, it's one of those very finicky plants to grow, and when it does, it's just delicious. It's one of the best ingredients when you're doing a roast chook or something like that. But it is difficult to kind of get going. And so don't despair if you've had trouble with French tarragon. Over here is something that you won't have trouble with. That's now being covered with our pumpkin. Is this beauty here? So saltbush, or people call it old man saltbush. We've caught up with the guys from Small World Bakery. I know they sometimes use this with bread. But it's a fantastic ingredient, and you can use it and not need to add salt seasoning to your food. It's just full of nutrients, so it really tastes quite salty. And Shane Wilson, a chef who was doing Table for 12 here over the summer, he's based in the Barossa, and I'm pretty sure he's doing some takeout food with Sam Kurtz's wines, which if you live up that way, is probably, I don't think you could eat or drink better at the moment. Shane used to make these salt and vinegar chips with this. So he'd just, soak these and rub them in oil, put them in the oven to bake, and then when they came out, he'd use like a vinegar dust on them. The most delicious snack ever. So hi Shane if you're watching. But we use this a lot. It is really good for you. Sheep love it. You've probably heard about saltbush lamb. So it's lovely to have these things that are so drought tolerant, but also really tasty. So, if you come around the corner here, we're on to the last of, well no, actually we're a long way from the last of our tomatoes. It just depends what happens with the season. We've got a couple of warm days this week, and earlier on I was, oh hi Chris, hello Chris Ryan. We were complaining, the Coonawarra tomato competition, I actually submitted some green tomatoes for that because hardly anyone had red tomatoes. And congratulations to Ulrich Graysmith who won that competition this year. He's won it a couple of times. I was pretty annoyed that our tomatoes were so late this year, much like vintage. And then I went into COVID lockdown, and I'm so grateful the tomatoes were late because I have been eating a lot of beautiful tomato dishes. So I have to pick them. Hello Tanya as well. I have to pick them kind of when they're not necessarily perfectly red and finish them off inside, because if you have a little look over here, those bastard soldier beetles, they just love tomatoes, and they suck all of the goodness out of them, and so they just don't end up tasting quite as good. So if you look at that one, that's definitely had the soldier beetles have a good go at that one. So it's not going to taste as good, so we'll leave that for seeds. And then here we've got some sorrel. Love sorrel. Nothing better with dishes, or just a lovely lemon seasoning. And then this bed always seems to, doesn't matter what I do, we've had these leaks right along the edge of it, and they just keep popping up every year. Probably helps that we have these lovely seeds. And then behind here, our sage hedge. So, we are in Cabernet country here, so I often describe good Cabernet, those dried herbs, and sage is one that always comes to mind with regards to Cabernet. So it's important to have a sage hedge, but it's also important when you work long hours and you've got to feed a young child or yourself quickly at the end of the day. Burnt butter sage is my go-to quick, easy, tasty dish at the end of the day, so therefore I need sage. So back around the front, mainly, there are some edible flowers here, calendula, we've got fennel's everywhere, and also some nasturtiums. And so a lot of the flowers, not only edible, but wonderful for bees. And then I love a pomegranate tree this time of the year that is so beautiful in autumn. So we've actually planted another 4 pomegranates because I, like many people, am a bit of an Ottolenghi tragic when it comes to cooking, and you can never have enough of them. Oh, hello Leanne Wilson. So nice to see you from Queensland. So come this way, and we're back into this is the original garden beds. So my brother, Shane Bell, and I put these together, and because of the wall that we've got here, this actually retains a bit of warmth, and so even this time of autumn, we're able to ripen eggplant. So it's lovely. This is still flowering. We've got some little eggplants coming on, so I'll be able to pick and eat those later, as long as my daughter doesn't pick them. There's one there that is coming on. Oh, look, that's a ripper. So probably eating that one tonight. And then here we've got some horseradish that's going nuts. I really do need to dig all of that up. When you dig up horseradish, it's just the root, obviously, that you eat, but the leaves have a beautiful fragrance, just touching them, and you smell it on your fingers, but they're very bitter, so they're not really that good for cooking. But the root of it, you grate like you would ginger or turmeric, and freshly dug up, washed over, nice, Coonawarra beef, bit of butter, it's pretty tasty. This way, we'll just say hi to the chooks. Yes, one of my favourite plants. So this is lemon verbena, and I am a much calmer, happier person when I've had my lemon verbena tea in the morning. You can see that it doesn't like frost. We've had a couple of cold nights, and so it does, it's really good in the summer. It actually really likes heat. It doesn't tend to kick off. I prune it right back afterwards, and it's dormant in the winter. But then when it comes out again, it's beautiful. So not in the short term, I'll probably start to harvest all this and then dry the leaves, so I've still got some to keep me sane through the winter time. But every garden should have a lemon verbena tree. And then we have heaps of nasturtiums. So we regularly rip out our nasturtiums. They create a good ground cover, but they take over and you can't get anything else growing. In behind here, probably need to rip this out again because there's some beautiful oregano growing through there. And with all those tomatoes and other dishes, it's a good time to be doing that. Now here's one of my gardening fails, putting mint in the ground. Coonawarra, mint kind of go together. I'm not usually a very competitive person until it comes to the Penola show, and I would love to beat Kerry DeGaris. She always wins the best mint. So I enter, my daughter enters the children's section. We've never been able to crack mint. We've won lots of other little gardening things, but that Kerry DeGaris, she always wins the mint. So you shouldn't put mint in the ground because that's what happens. It goes nuts. We regularly have to pull it out, but I think it tastes great. I don't know what's wrong with the judges. I love my mint, and it makes great mojitos and other things, and pretty good with the lemon verbena in a tea. So often with our table of 12, we'll finish with a lovely fresh green tea from the garden, and we'll have people come through cellar doors saying, "Oh, do you think it's okay if I take a little bit of mint?" And we just laugh because we're overwhelmed with way too much mint. Behind us, we've got our beautiful chickens, and the last of the zucchinis. We had a chef in lockdown with us from Canberra, from Collector, Luke. He picked a lot of our zucchini flowers and was doing deep fried zucchini flowers with goat's cheese and dill for us. Yes, doing it tough when Luke was around, but as you can see, this is really on its last legs now, very susceptible to powdery mildew. I tried to pick all the leaves off that were affected, but there's still some there, so it won't be long before we have to pull that out. But if you're watching Luke or Scott, I saw that you were watching, there might still be another couple of deep fries of those zucchini flowers. So here, Pick's Tribes, this gets cut back and then it ends up way taller than me, which actually isn't that tall, but this is bronze fennel. So you see a lot of wild fennel growing along the roadside. We've got that as well. But the bronze fennel has, as you can see, a darker frond and a much sweeter taste. So if you eat that, not only is it almost like cleaning your teeth, in terms of breath freshener, but it's really sweet, that lovely aniseed. And the seeds also have a much stronger taste than the normal wild fennel. So I really love bronze fennel. It's also beautiful. One of the best simple dishes I think I've ever had was Frank Mora when he came for Sips and the Sticks. We got some freshly caught tuna from Andy and Gretel Sneath, and that tuna had been swimming probably 24 hours before we got it. Frank was pretty excited when he saw it, and so we tasted some prior to using it for the lunch and just cubed it, olive oil, salt, a little bit of this. Simple, delicious, unforgettable dish. Over here, beautiful old plant, borage. So borage, you can use the leaves for making green soups and things like that. And the flowers are lovely. Traditionally, you can chuck them in salads and things like that. They're really pretty, garnish and also edible. But I love them in Pimm's. So anyone else that has enjoys a bit of a Pimm's, you need some borage in your garden, and the bees love it as well. Over the back, some beautiful greens that we have been living off, and some new cornflower coming up, and again some more kale. And then here, another nasturtium bed, and then we've got garlic chives, we've got parsley seed. That's the parsley seed and garlic chives. We've included that along with some calendula flowers in our Easter dozen pack with the Small World Bakery flour, and some honey that comes from Jimmy, who has hives around the Limestone Coast, but he has had some hives here as well. As you can see, bees quite like here, and they also really enjoy the red gums. But we try to, Taryn is fantastic at making me preserve seeds. I probably wasn't as good at that. The seed that I used to preserve the most was the bronze fennel, because I love using it in cooking. So we're sending that out so people will be able to put that in their gardens. So this garden bed is basically heaving at the moment, and the tomatoes are just growing right out onto the path. But I'm hesitant to rip a lot out at the moment because it's nice to have the food. So, but soon we will have to pull this out. I might have to watch that movie Fried Green Tomatoes and make some tomato relish, green tomato relish. If anyone's got a great recipe. So then this way, the chooks, more leeks, and there's a heap of new things being planted that we're trying to keep the chooks out of. We use our coffee grounds and eggshells as a natural deterrent for snails, and we get those giant slugs. But it is pretty much an organic garden, but occasionally I will use snail bait, so I confess that I do that. Through here we've got some great herbs. There's some rhubarb behind there, and then this one, now I'm going to forget. This is Lad's Love, this one. And I remember when I used to work at Woodstock back in the day, they had a really beautiful herb garden, which probably was one of the inspirations for my garden. I used to love seeing different chefs hanging out there mid-service or harvesting. And Lad's Love apparently is not something you should take if you're pregnant. And it was called Lad's Love because it might help get rid of an unwanted baby, so not good for women. But isn't that a terrible name, calling it Lad's Love? Anyway, it obviously has other uses as well that are healthy. And then this one, wormwood, is great. You can put it in your nest for your chickens, and it helps kind of, I think, deter lice. But I'm pretty sure that Van Gogh used to have a little bit of this and make some great art, possibly a little bit hallucinogenic. But we want to keep our ears, so perhaps go easy with the wormwood. Makes a great hedge, very hardy, easy to grow. So raspberries are done. This garden bed see, this is my disaster. Here, the watering system to it isn't working, and so raspberries really struggled this year. But what we have behind here, we'll chop out soon, is our asparagus patch. So we'll chop those out, and then we'll start to see the new ones. So asparagus really does love water and mulch, so we'll put lots of different sheep and chicken and donkey and cow poo on that to help it, and then we get some beautiful asparagus spears. And that is something, I've got a daughter who's surrounded by this and is a very plain eater, but I have spied her eating fresh raspberries and breaking off asparagus and eating that in the garden, so there's hope for her yet. Back down here, some little pumpkins. Again, not getting much water, so probably not looking that good. These are our pomegranate trees that are, kind of now losing their leaves, going into dormancy. And then we'll start to see these artichokes pop up. So the globe artichokes, you can see some flowers there of ones that we didn't pick. I love these. They're often a bit of work, but I have to say my friends, Sarah Pigeon or at Grace Smith, they have lots that come up in their garden too, and we've had many a Sunday afternoon sitting on a veranda with a glass of wine eating artichokes, and I love the way that they do it. Here, you might think this is all looking a bit sad, but it's what we need it to do. So this is Jerusalem artichoke, and so when it grows up in the summertime, you get almost like a small sunflower daisy. Look at the chickens. Hello, girls. And so what you don't worry about, you wait till this, you kind of get some frosts and then it breaks off, and it's what's under the ground that we need. Excuse me. I'm going to pull this one out. And so this here is the gold. So this is Jerusalem artichoke, and you just wash that up, and you can use it to make the most exquisite soups, or you can bake it in the oven. And freshly dug up like this, if you wash it and use it, it almost has an incredible truffle-like character. I can see some more there. So that will be going into my dinner tonight. I really love the soup. It's probably one of my favourite things to use Jerusalem artichoke for. But Luke cooked up some pretty nice fried roasted ones for us as well. So we probably haven't got as big a harvest of that this year. Sometimes it's really prolific. I think the dry season has limited that a little bit. But yeah, we'll still have plenty there. It's just lovely to have something like that seasonally. And so then here, we're kind of towards the end of the garden tour. And these garden beds, oh no, I do. I've got three more beds to show you. These ones, you can see the bronze fennel when it's a little bit more useful. Again, we always have heaps of this. Righto. Hi, Scott. We will go easy on the artichokes. Another name for Jerusalem artichokes is fartichoke, and I'll let you work out why, but it's guaranteed to keep you moving. So over the car park here, we had some other ones that were in an old rainwater tank. So in this one, these 3 garden beds were built by Paul Smith, so Dr. Paul Smith, who used to work at the AWRA and is now with Wine Australia. So he came down for a week of vintage one year to see what happens in a winery. We actually weren't that busy the week that Paul came down, and so he got to do some wine work, but also him and Ian Rennie helped build these wicking beds. And so they are fantastic because they hold the water in the bottom. I'm sure lots of the keen gardeners have got wicking beds, but in a dry summer, it really showed the difference, in how well they would hold that water. And we've got a plethora of greens here. Hello, David Simpson. It's nice to see you and remind you of the garden when you were glamping here. And so Taryn just the other day put up these fences because the chickens have taken to laying their eggs in here, scratching around and taking out all our new seedlings. But yeah, we've got heaps of greens. We've got lots of rocket seed over there. Obviously some lush parsley, more tomatoes, nasturtiums. Over here, this is my effort at containing mint. Yet again, probably shouldn't have gone in such a big vessel. I might just stick with a wine barrel in the future. And these are probably my favourite, I forgot the name, I said it before. Sorrel. This is probably my favourite little bit of sorrel, and I think it is because it comes out of the wicking bed. And, this stuff on top is what I've been talking to you about. So this is heritage sheep poo. So you can see how it breaks down, full of goodness, full of stinging nettle seeds and other things, but really helps the organic matter and health of all of our plants. When Tim Flannery, just to name drop, came here for a dinner, Marty Longbottom and Ben Harris and some others with the Limestone Coast Grape and Wine Council, we organised a climate change seminar down here for our local grape growing winemaking community. And so the dinner the night before, Tim Flannery was here and the topic of old sheep poo came up, and he said, oh, you should get that analysed, because then you'd know the climate that those animals lived in 150 years ago. So there's always a lot to learn from poo. So don't knock the poo. There's a lot of poo used in this garden from various animals. And so that's probably all I've got to say to show around. But I am incredibly privileged to have this garden during Corona lockdown. So you guys, if you want some seeds or something like that, just get online, order some wine, and I'll pop some seeds in for you. Just tell me what you'd like. Here is a little tree that has been quite prolific, and it's fig season, which the ants love it, and those annoying soldier beetles also love it, so that's what they do to it. But we've been picking and eating lots of these. I love fig with lamb. You can use the leaves to wrap around your lamb, and it has the beautiful coconutty kind of smell as it cooks. This tree is amazing for its age, but there's a tree at, I think it might be Drew Reschke's Gran's place, where a friend of mine, Michael Fitzpatrick, lives. It's huge, and we get the most incredible figs from there, and great fig leaves. And so various chefs have been with me when we've raided that tree to get the leaves, not just the figs. But Fitzy, very COVID friendly with his gloves, and from a distance came and left me a big box of figs the other day. So thank you, Michael Fitzpatrick, they were delicious. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, happy Easter, and eat well, stay healthy.